Welcome to Mindful Moments. Nourish your mind on the go. This video uses AI narration to present our original book analysis. Today, we're diving into All the President's Men by Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward. You've probably heard about Watergate, the scandal that took down President Nixon. Well, this book gives us a front row seat to the whole thing, straight from the reporters who broke this story.
It's really amazing how it all begins with what seems like a small break-in at the Watergate Hotel. 5 guys are arrested, and at first it's just a third-rate burglary, as the book calls it. But Woodward and Bernstein, these 2 reporters from the Washington Post, start pulling at threads and uncover this massive web of conspiracy.
It's like they're assigned a simple local news story and ended up stumbling onto one of the biggest political scandals in American history.
Right. And early on, they discover that these burglars are tied to the White House. One of them, James McCord, he was a security coordinator for the Committee to Re-elect the President, the CRP. Another, E. Howard Hunt, had direct links to the White House. They even found his name and number in the burglars' address books with notes like W. House and WH.
Okay, so at this point, the alarm bells must be going off.
Right.
What did they do next?
Basically, they went into overdrive. Woodward and Bernstein interviewed anyone and everyone connected to the case, neighbors, police sources, former officials, secretaries, you name it. And it wasn't just casual chats. The book talks about how they meticulously tracked down leads, cross-checked information, really dug deep.
And this was the early 70s. No internet, no instant communication. I can't even imagine the legwork involved.
Exactly. They were old-school gumshoe reporters, working the phones, pounding the pavement, piecing together this complex puzzle. And
as they get deeper into the story, they uncover some shocking revelations, like that mysterious $89,000 deposit in one of the burglars' bank accounts, money that could be traced back to Mexico City. Suddenly, the story had an international dimension.
And then there's the discovery of a secret CRP fund controlled by top aides to John Mitchell, Nixon's former attorney general. This fund was being used for so-called intelligence gathering, which was basically a cover for dirty tricks and political sabotage.
Wait, so this wasn't just a break-in. This was a whole organized campaign to undermine the opposition.
That's exactly what Woodward and Bernstein were uncovering. And the deeper they dug, the more they realized this went way beyond a simple break-in. It was a systematic effort to manipulate the political process, and it all seemed to be connected to the White House. For instance, they uncovered this whole Canuck letter scandal.
What was that about? I don't think I've ever heard of it.
So, Senator Edmund Muskie, he was considered a front-runner for the Democratic presidential nomination. A fake letter was sent to the editor of the Manchester Union Leader in New Hampshire. It was making false accusations about Muskie's views on French Canadians, which are called Canucks. This letter seriously damaged Muskie's campaign, and guess what? It was later revealed that the CRP was behind it.
Wow. So they were actively working to sabotage Nixon's opponents.
Exactly. They were willing to go to incredible lengths to ensure Nixon's re-election. And then there's the figure of Donald Segretti. He was actually hired to disrupt Democratic campaigns.
And Segretti was connected to the White House, too.
That's what Woodward and Bernstein were trying to find out. His involvement further implicated those in power and pointed to a broader pattern of dirty tricks and attempts to manipulate the election.
The book really paints a picture of a White House that was desperate to win at all costs. But how did the reporters manage to get so close to the truth, especially with all this pressure and potential danger?
Well, that's where their investigative skills and dedication come in. They had to be incredibly careful, using anonymous sources and meeting in secret. You probably know about Woodward's famous contact, Deep Throat. He would meet him in parking garages, signaling his arrival by moving a flower pot on Woodward's balcony.
I remember that image from the movie. It's like something out of a spy thriller. But these clandestine meetings were clearly crucial, weren't they?
Absolutely. Deep Throat, who turned out to be Mark Felt, a high-ranking FBI official. He provided Woodward with crucial information, confirming their suspicions, and helping them navigate the complex web of deceit and cover-ups. He also warned them about the dangers they faced, confirming that the White House was trying to stop them from publishing the story.
So they were literally putting their careers and maybe even their lives on the line to get this story out.
Right, and as they got closer to the truth, the pressure intensified. They even had a run-in with the FBI.
What happened there?
Well, they were accused of obtaining information from leaked FBI reports. It was a tense situation, highlighting the adversarial relationship that can exist between the press and those in power, especially when those in power are trying to hide something. This whole episode raises questions about the limits of journalistic freedom. the balance between the public's right to know and the need for confidentiality. It's a debate that continues to this day, and All the President's Men provides a real-world example of how these issues play out.
So even as they were uncovering this massive conspiracy, they were facing real-world consequences for their work. It must have been incredibly stressful.
You can definitely feel that tension building throughout the book. They're working long hours, facing constant pressure, and dealing with the weight of this huge story. And they can't afford to make any mistakes. There's this one point where they almost connect Haldeman, Nixon's chief of staff, to the secret fund based on faulty information. They were convinced they had it right, but it turned out to be a mix-up with Ehrlichman.
Oh, wow. That could have been a disaster.
It really shows that even the most meticulous reporters can make errors. It highlights the importance of verification and double-checking facts, especially in a story as high-stakes as this. They were under immense pressure to get the story out, but they also knew that one false step could derail the entire investigation.
So what happened next? How did they get back on track?
Well, a key turning point comes with the testimony of Hugh Sloan, a former treasurer for the CRP. He revealed crucial details about the secret fund and its purpose, providing further evidence of the illegal activities taking place.
So the walls are starting to close in.
Yeah.
On the Nixon administration.
Yes, and things escalate quickly from here. But to really appreciate the tension and drama of those final days, you'll have to read the book.
Well, we're definitely getting there. But before we continue, let's take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment to continue our deep dive into All the President's Men. Okay, so we left off with Hugh Sloan's bombshell testimony, which really started to unravel the whole cover-up. What happens next?
Things start moving really fast. Remember that secret phone line Woodward and Bernstein discovered in the White House, the one paid for by the CRP? That becomes a key piece of evidence, solidifying the link between the break-in and the highest levels of government.
So at this point, they're not just chasing a story. They're essentially building a case against the president himself. That's a lot of pressure.
Absolutely. And it takes a toll on them. The book really captures the emotional and psychological impact of their investigation. You know, they're constantly looking over their shoulders, worried about being followed, having their phones tapped, even facing potential threats. There's this one scene where Woodward is waiting to meet Deep Throat, and he becomes convinced that Deep Throat might have been caught. He waits for hours in a dark garage, terrified of what might have happened.
Wow. It's easy to forget that these were real people facing real danger.
Exactly. And they were also dealing with these intense ethical dilemmas. They had to make these difficult decisions about what to publish, when to publish it, and how to protect their sources, all while facing immense pressure from both the White House and their own editors.
You mentioned their editors. What role did the Washington Post play in all of this?
The Post was absolutely crucial. They provided Woodward and Bernstein with the resources and support they needed to pursue the story, even when it became incredibly risky. The book also gives us a glimpse into the inner workings of a major newspaper. During a major news event, we see the editors debating the implications of the story, weighing the risks and rewards, and ultimately standing by their reporters.
It was a real team effort. But it wasn't just Woodward, Bernstein, and the Post, right? There were others who played key roles in bringing down Nixon.
Right. John Dean, the former White House counsel. He emerged as a pivotal figure. His testimony before the Senate Watergate Committee was a bombshell. He revealed that he had met with Nixon back in March and told him about the cover-up. He even claimed that Nixon had asked about the cost of buying the burglar's silence.
So Dean basically turned on Nixon and confirmed that the president knew about the cover-up all along.
Exactly. And then things really start to unravel. Haldeman and Ehrlichman, two of Nixon's closest aides, resign, admitting to their involvement in these undercover activities. Even the FBI director is implicated, destroying evidence that further fuels the scandal. And then there's this bombshell revelation. Judge John Sirica, he's presiding over the trial of the Watergate burglars, reveals a connection between the break-in and the Pentagon Papers case.
Wait, the Pentagon Papers. Can you remind us what that was all about?
Sure. The Pentagon Papers were a top-secret study of U.S. involvement in Vietnam, leaked to the press by Daniel Ellsberg. The Nixon administration had tried to prevent the New York Times from publishing the papers, arguing that it was a threat to national security. Well, it turns out that the same group that broke into the Watergate Hotel had also burglarized the office of Ellsberg's psychiatrist, looking for information to discredit him.
So they were using these illegal tactics to target anyone who they saw as a threat.
It was all about maintaining power and control, even if it meant breaking the law. and undermining democratic institutions.
This is all just mind-blowing. It's amazing how they managed to connect all these dots and expose such a massive conspiracy.
It really is a testament to their investigative skills, their persistence, and their courage. They were relentless in their pursuit of the truth, even when it meant facing incredible risks and pressure.
So what about Nixon? How did he react to all of this?
Well, as the evidence mounted, he became increasingly isolated and desperate. He denied any wrongdoing, attacked the press, and tried to discredit the investigation. But the walls were closing in, and finally, with impeachment proceedings looming, he resigned from office.
A truly historic moment.
Yes, and the book really captures the intensity of those final days. We see the pressure mounting on Nixon, the unraveling of his administration, and the sense of inevitability as he's forced to confront the consequences of his actions.
But even though Nixon resigned, the story doesn't end there, does it?
No. The legacy of Watergate continues to resonate today. It had a profound impact on American politics and journalism. It also raised important questions about power, corruption, and the role of a free press in a democratic society.
It's a reminder that these issues are still relevant today. But let's talk more about the impact of All the President's Men. This book wasn't just a bestseller. It became a cultural phenomenon. It was adapted into a critically acclaimed film, and it really brought the story of Watergate to a wider audience.
Absolutely, and it had a lasting impact on journalism. Woodward and Bernstein became symbols of journalistic integrity and courage. Their work inspired a whole generation of reporters to pursue investigative journalism and hold those in power accountable.
I can see why. The book reads like a thriller, but it's all true. It really shows the power of investigative journalism to uncover the truth and expose wrongdoing.
And it highlights the importance of a free and independent press. It's the press's responsibility to shine a light on corruption, to ask tough questions, and to hold those in power accountable, even when it's dangerous to do so.
It's a responsibility that's more important than ever, especially in an era where the press is often under attack.
Exactly. All the President's Men is a powerful reminder that we need to be vigilant about protecting a free press and supporting those who are willing to speak truth to power.
It's also a reminder that even the most powerful people are not above the law, and that a free press can play a crucial role in holding them accountable. But what does this all mean for us today, all these years later?
That's a great question. I think one of the most important takeaways from All the President's Men is that democracy is fragile. It requires constant vigilance and the active participation of informed citizens.
So it's call to action in a way.
Yes, absolutely. It's a reminder that we all have a role to play in safeguarding our democracy. We need to be informed, engaged, and willing to speak out against injustice. We need to support a free and independent press and hold our leaders accountable. And we need to remember the lessons of Watergate, the dangers of unchecked power, the importance of transparency, and the courage it takes to stand up for what's right.
This has been an incredibly insightful conversation, but I feel like we've only scratched the surface of this complex and a fascinating story.
I agree. All the President's Men is a book that stays with you long after you finished reading it.
So we've talked about the historical significance of All the President's Men and its impact on journalism and politics. But what makes this book such a compelling read, even decades later?
Well, for one thing, it's just a masterclass in investigative journalism. Woodward and Bernstein take you step by step through their process. From the initial tip to those final bombshell revelations. You see how they cultivated sources, followed leads, and pieced together this complex puzzle.
It's almost like a detective story, but with real-world stakes.
Exactly. And the writing is just so gripping. It's clear, concise, incredibly detailed. You really feel like you're right there with them, in the newsroom, on the streets, in those smoke-filled parking garages.
And the book isn't just about the facts of the case. It also explores the human drama behind it. We see the toll that the investigation takes on Woodward and Bernstein, the pressure they're under, the risks they're facing. Yeah. We also get a glimpse into the inner workings of the Nixon White House, the paranoia, the desperation, the willingness to do whatever it takes to hold on to power.
Right. It's a fascinating study in how power corrupts and how even the most powerful people can be brought down when they abuse that power. And the book does a great job of capturing the atmosphere of the time, the sense of uncertainty and disillusionment that many Americans were feeling.
I can only imagine. To have your faith in your government shaken like that must have been really unsettling.
It definitely was a pivotal moment in American history. And All the President's Men helps us understand the complexities of that moment, the forces that were at play, and the individuals who helped shape the course of events.
So connecting this back to the listener, Why should someone pick up this book today? What makes it relevant in 2024?
Well, I think it's more relevant than ever. We live in a time when trust in institutions is declining, when misinformation is rampant, and when democratic norms are being challenged. All the President's Men reminds us of the importance of truth, accountability, and a free press. It shows us what can happen when those things are eroded, and it inspires us to fight to protect them.
It's also a reminder that individuals can make a difference. Woodward and Bernstein were just two reporters, but they had the courage and tenacity to take on the most powerful man in the world. And they won.
Exactly. That's a message that we need to hear today. It's a reminder that we all have a responsibility to speak truth to power, to hold our leaders accountable, and to demand a government that is transparent and ethical.
So All the President's Men is not just a great book. It's an important book. It's a story that needs to be told and retold, especially for younger generations who might not be familiar with the details of Watergate.
Absolutely. It's a book that should be required reading for every American.
Well, I think we've made a strong case for why everyone should check out All the President's Men.
I agree. It's a book that'll stay with you long after you finish reading it.
And if you're interested in learning more about this incredible story, be sure to pick up a copy of the book. We've included a link in the description where you can purchase it. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to Mindful Moments for more thought-provoking content. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a fascinating book. Until then, keep those minds sharp and keep learning.